This is the Italian Citizenship Podcast, hosted by Marco Permunian and Rafael Di Furia.
Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Italian Citizenship Podcast, presented by ItaliancitizenshipAssistance.com. Of course, we are back at it again with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I am doing great, thank you. And in today's episode, we wanted to talk a bit about the power of attorney necessary for a 1948 case. So for those of you who may be less familiar with what a 1948 case is, I would definitely recommend checking out some of our in-depth episodes. However, just for the time being, Marco, can you give us a little bit more insight on just the kind of the basics of 1948 cases, and then why exactly it is that the power of attorney is necessary?
So like you said, a 1948 case is a case involving a female ancestor who gave birth to her child before January 1st of 1948. And in this case, the only way to go to present their case is to file it with an Italian court, meaning that it's not possible to present these cases to Italian consulates, or rather Italian consulates deny these cases when they are presented to them. So the only way of getting citizenship through a female ancestor for people who are in this situation is to file their case with the court. Now, I believe that the first and most important piece of information to give to these people is that these cases can only be presented by an attorney, so you cannot file this case by yourself. And therefore, you can only present your case through a practicing attorney, meaning an attorney who is registered with an Italian bar association. Now, keep in mind that while attorneys are registered with a local bar association in the country, as well as with the National Bar Association, an attorney can present a case anywhere in Italy. So it's completely fine and allowed for an attorney who's registered with a bar association like myself in Northern Italy, in the city of Rovigo, to present a case in another jurisdiction, as opposed to what happens in other countries like the US, where, for example, only attorneys registered in a certain state can present cases in that specific state. In Italy, an attorney registered in a region of the country can present cases everywhere else in the country. Now, when you engage the services of an attorney, you also will have to give that specific attorney power of attorney, meaning you will have to draft a legal document that allows that specific lawyer to represent you in court and bring the case on your behalf and in your name, and that's done by signing a power of attorney. Now, there are very specific rules regarding power of attorneys, and also you should be very careful regarding these rules and make sure that you follow them precisely, because Italian courts are very careful with regards to the requirements regarding the power of attorney, so you need to make sure that you follow them to the letter to avoid delays in your case, or even that your case cannot be taken, that you have to redo the power of attorney, or even refile the case. So I think the most important requirement is that you need to make sure that the power of attorney is either signed in the presence of your attorney, who has the power to certify your signature, and that can only be done in Italy. So if your attorney is visiting the US, you cannot sign a power of attorney by having your attorney certify your signature outside of Italy. That can only be done within Italy. So if you're traveling to Italy, if you're visiting your attorney, if you're coming to see us at our offices, if you're engaging ICA services, then you can sign the power of attorney in our offices before myself or one of the other attorneys in my firm, and we can certify your signature. However, in this case, I think it's safe to keep documentation showing that you travel to Italy to be present in the offices of your attorney to sign the power of attorney, because the court might ask for justification as to when were you in Italy, were you actually in Italy when you signed the power of attorney. So in these cases, for example, stamps on your passport or travel documents or even flight tickets might help put the judge's mind at ease if the power of attorney is questioned by the counterpart. However, the most common way to certify a power of attorney is to have a notary do that, specifically a U.S. notary if you live in the U.S., meaning that you don't have to visit your attorney's office and have your attorney certify your signature. If you live outside of Italy, you can go to a notary in your country, a public notary, and have the notary certify your signature on the power of attorney, through which you give your attorney in Italy the power to represent you throughout the process.
Very interesting, Marco. And I can assume that maybe the majority of individuals who are listening to this or watching this on YouTube would be wanting to do this while living in the US and not wanting to travel to Italy during this process. So using that option of going to a notary in the US, what is it that they actually have to do with the notary? How does that work? And what are the steps in that process?
So there are a few requirements that you need to keep in mind. The first would be make sure that the commission of the notary that signs the power of attorney, that countersigns the power of attorney, doesn't expire before you're able to get an apostille, because the power of attorney that you sign before a notary will need to be apostille in order to be used in Italy. And we've talked about apostilles in other videos, and I encourage our viewers to watch those videos for more information about apostilles. But like I said in those videos, the apostille is a certification that is released by the Secretary of State of a certain state. So once you have signed your power of attorney before a U.S. notary in a certain state, you will have to send the power of attorney to the Secretary of State's office to be apostilled. And if the commission of the notary has expired in the meantime, the Secretary of State might not be able to apostille that document. So make sure that the commission of the notary is not about to expire when you execute a power of attorney before a certain notary. Now, of course, the power of attorney will need to be eventually translated into Italian. So the most common way to go is to get a power of attorney in English, which then is translated into Italian by our team of translators. However, there is a way to avoid translation and certification costs if the notary is willing to sign a power of attorney in two languages, so a bilingual power of attorney, meaning in Italian and in English, so a document that is drafted half in Italian and half in English. However, not all the notaries are willing to do so. It depends on the specific notary, it depends on the state in which the document is notarized. So make sure that you ask the notary that you want to use in advance whether they're willing to notarize a bilingual document, because that could save some time and money.
Thank you, Marco, for sharing all of that. And I'm just curious, though, when it comes to the power of attorney itself, what is it exactly that is on this document? What are you signing? What information is there? What rights are you giving to the attorney to be able to act on your behalf?
That is a very good question. A lot of people ask me or are concerned about, the content of the document. They ask me, am I giving you permission to do other things, to represent me in other processes? But the power of attorney is a very specific document that authorizes the attorney to only represent the person during that specific court process. So the powers of the attorney are limited to that specific court proceeding. The power of attorney basically includes the name of the person, the last name, date of birth, place of residency, as well as the court before which the attorney is able to represent you. Now, generally speaking, the power of attorney, unless the client prefers to do otherwise, gives the attorney the ability to represent the client not only before the court, the civil court, but also before the court of appeal, in case there is the need to go through an appeal process. This way, you don't have to do another power of attorney for the appeal, should that be necessary. Also, the power of attorney includes the name of the attorney that is going to be representing you, as well as the address, the legal address of the attorney.
Very interesting. And so far, I'm assuming that we've only spoken about individuals who are above the age of majority, above the age of 18. What about when you are working on a case that involves a family with minor children? How does that all work? Do the parents have to sign that they're giving the children's attorney the this and that and the other? Are there multiple steps there, or do the children have to come in and say that they give you the right to be able to do that, or is it just fine enough for their parents to sign on their behalf?
That's a very good question. So whenever there is a child, somebody who is under the age of majority, we do need a power of attorney for that person. However, the power of attorney is signed by the parent. Also, keep in mind that it's safer, especially when the parents are divorced, to have both parents sign a power of attorney, because that could be challenged in court by your counterpart. So whenever there's a minor, or whenever a minor has more than one legal guardian, it's always best to have all of the parents or legal guardians sign a power of attorney for the minor.
That's especially fascinating, but you did mention one particular word there, your counterpart. Who is the counterpart in this particular situation?
The counterpart is the Ministry of Interior. So you are basically suing the Ministry of Interior in these kind of cases because you are challenging the Italian law that prevented women from transferring citizenship to their children. So even if there is tons of legal precedents and these cases are easy to win, you always have to sue the Italian government, and more specifically the Ministry of Interior. So that's your counterpart. And of course, the Ministry of Interior is defended by the state attorneys. And it's not a question of whether the state attorneys want you to win or lose their case. It's just the state attorneys, by default, they're going to challenge your claim no matter what it is. So in this specific case, by default, because they were instructed to do so, they will challenge whatever they can challenge. So that's why I'm saying be sure to follow the rules, specifically regarding the power of attorney, because that's one of the points that normally can be challenged whenever a mistake is made.
Well, interesting. And so, Marco, just one last final question. We've spoken about that you need the power of attorney, but why do you need the power of attorney? Why is it not possible for someone to just send you a letter just in the mail that's saying, hey, I give Marco Permunian the permission to blah, 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 on such and date, such time and such place for such purposes. Why is that not good enough?
Well, the Italian legal system is a very old legal system with a lot of rules being taken by the Roman laws from the Roman Empire. And the law states specifically that in order for an attorney to represent somebody in court before an Italian civil court or court of appeal, a specific document is needed, which is called power of attorney, or in Italian procura, which is a document that needs to include very specific information that is indicated in the Italian law, such as the name of the client, the name of the attorney, residency address, court that needs to be addressed, some warnings that you need to give to the client, for example, that their information is being treated according to the data protection laws. So there are very specific information that needs to be included in the power of attorney, and that's why the power of attorney is so important, because it's very well regulated by the law, and without it, an attorney cannot represent you in court. So basically, there are two reasons why a power of attorney is necessary in order for an attorney to represent a client before an Italian court. The first one is the content of the power of attorney itself that is regulated by the law, and only if there is a document with such content which can be qualified as a power of attorney, then an attorney can represent a client in court. But the second reason is that the court needs to be sure of the fact that you signed a power of attorney, so that specific document with that specific content, which can be accomplished by either signing the power of attorney before your attorney, which has the power to certify your signature, and the fact that you signed the power of attorney before him, or have a public notary in the US certify your signature, and then getting the signature of the notary apostille, like I described before.
Well, thank you so much again, Marco, for making yourself available for all of these questions and to dig deep into this topic. And if anybody is needing help with their 1948 case or to get Italian citizenship by descent iure sanguinis, how can they get in contact with you and your team?
People can contact us through our website, ItaliancitizenshipAssistance.com, or give us a call. Our number is on the website.
Absolutely fantastic. And of course, if you're interested in more information like this, be sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel as well as the audio-only podcast, the Italian Citizenship Podcast. But of course, if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, that means you're automatically subscribed to the Italian Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about purchasing property in Italy, renting property in Italy, as well as where to do so. And also, if you're interested in more about life abroad and living abroad from the perspective of a dual citizen expat, be sure to come over to my YouTube channel and audio podcast, Not Your Average Globetrotter. You can search for Not Your Average Globetrotter on Google or youtube.com/Rafael Di Furia. But again, we have been here for another episode of the Italian Citizenship Podcast with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. I'm Rafael Di Furia. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we will see you all next time. Later.
Thank you.